Hello and welcome along to a second episode of this brand new mini-series from FM21 where we try and take a bit of insight and a little bit of a deeper look at some of the areas of the game we so often ignore. In part 1 we had a deep look at tactics from this FM21 series with Bangor City and just sort of focused on the narrow diamond, how we set the team up, what the roles are intended for and the key principles we apply when creating this tactic. So if you did miss that one, please do catch up with it in the eye above. Just because today's episode, although the general rules will apply, it won't sort of make sense as to what I'm discussing if you haven't seen the first one. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at match analysis. So we finished off the last episode by having a brief look at it, because normally the most match analysis a lot of people do with the game is this little bit down here below the tactic, where it's just the positives and negatives in key point form. But we're going to drill down into it because I think probably in the whole of FM, across everyone I know who plays it, it's the most untapped, brilliant, in-depth resource, and it's something I use quite frequently but can never really show in the stories. So I'm hoping to show you two individual games and how they can pan out very differently against a very good side in the Europa League and against a very poor side who we dominated in the Welsh League, and also to show you the general team analysis over a course of a few games. So if you're looking forward to all of that and it is something you want to see more of, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Let me know in the comments down below if you're finding this series useful, and subscribe for daily FM21 content from two long-term stories. So we're going to pick up here essentially exactly where we left off. We talked about how we created this tactic and exactly what we wanted it to achieve over the course of 90 minutes every game. So we're going to look at two very contrasting games, and we're going to look at the general team tactics and how they apply in different competitions. We've had a look at the very brief bits here, but let's go into our team report. We're going to ignore all of the overview, all of the analysis stuff, and we are going to skip ahead straight to match analysis. So in the tactical special, we talked about the narrow diamond and the principles it was looking to bring to us. And what we knew is that we wanted most of our key chances to come through the middle. We wanted most of our shots to be the width for the penalty area and ideally the width for the 6-yard box. And we wanted a lot of our key passes through the middle. We wanted to win the ball back in the centre of the pitch. And when our opposition were attacking, we wanted to force them wide, let them get crosses in, and make the interceptions there. If we could do it higher up the pitch with a bigger press, then great. That's something we've developed over time. So if we have a look at the last 5 games, which is what this recent match analysis is based on, you can see that the only negative really is in terms of one of our backup players. So that's absolutely nothing to worry about. In terms of the positives though, there's some real good signs. Let me just take out the Marseille defeat so you can see the difference here. So 3 pretty convincing league victories, albeit one of them was narrow, and then 1 victory at home in the Europa League, just because this is a more representative view of what we have over a season. So we take out the Harry Clifton thing. Our only real negative is that we didn't get into attacking areas from the left of the pitch. Now, we're not expecting to create chances down the left or right. We want 80-90% of them to come down the middle and then the odd cross from a marauding fullback. More often though, they're going to be winning us set pieces. But if we have a look at the positives, we've conceded no shots from outside the area, and we already talked in the tactic about the importance of that. We wanted to force the opposition to shoot from distance from central areas, because there we've sort of clogged the pitch up in very simple terms. We've got 3 midfielders who are normally back and closing down. We've got 2 centre halves and 2 tucked in fullbacks. So that's 7 players. You're not often going to get time for a shot 25 yards out against 7 players. In terms of opposition touches, they've had 56 in the penalty area, but only 1 goal. And that's key as well. The things we want them to have in the penalty area: headers under pressure, which is where we're forcing them to cross the ball and we've got the box packed. And we also want to force them to play backwards. If we've got our good shape centrally, we're forcing them back to the edge of the box. We're then closing down and the shots from outside the box are toothless. That's what we're hoping for. So you can see 56 touches in the opposition area, our own, but only 14 shots. And that ratio is normally a bit higher, normally around a third, which would be 18 to 20. The final third entries looking at the other end of the pitch is where we've become much more impressive. Over a third of them, and in fact nearly half, are through the middle of the pitch. Exactly what we want. 40 to 45% of our attacking intent has come through the middle. The key passes, the distribution, the interceptions even high up the pitch have come in the middle and allow us to attack where we've got the most players, where we've got the most strength, and where we should outnumber most of our oppositions. And we are also getting a good number of touches in the opposition's penalty box, which shows that we're not shooting from as far out often, which is why we're creating more chances and more goals. It's simple science really, but let's see how that applies in 2 individual matches. because obviously we've got a lot of Welsh games where we're dominant. So we're going to focus on 2 games and show you the exact same individual match analysis. So we're going to do this 1-0 home win against Marseille, and then we're going to show a 6-0 win against Llandudno in the league, where we're absolutely dominant and wipe the floor with them. But let's get the match analysis of Marseille at home first. And we're going to look at 4 key areas today. So I've written them down, I've got my notes ready. We're going to look at shots, because we want to see roughly where our chances are coming from. We want to look at how they're created and where from, while looking at key passes. We're going to have a look at interceptions, because where we win the ball is crucial to how well we're going to counter-attack successfully. And we're also going to have a look at the heat map and the average position we gain possession, because again, that's something that's crucial to our play. Where are our attacks starting? Where is our possession starting? And how far have we got to go to get to the opposition goal? And are we in the central areas where we've got the most players? That's what we're going to find out today. So of course keeping Marseille to a blank is a very good achievement. A clean sheet against them, excellent work. So let's see the 5 shots they had. They had one that hit the woodwork, but you can see it was sort of a pop shot. It's from nearly the edge of the area out very wide. That's something that we're not going to worry about too much. They've had 2 shots, one from outside the box and one from slightly wider again, outside the width of the 6-yard box, and they were saved comfortably. Because again, they're not great shooting positions. They're not one-on-ones. They're not 8 yards out in front of goal. And the other 2 chances that are off target that are in those areas are Scott McTominay and Matteo Major. So they were 2 players who had headers. I've gone and checked them. Headers from 6 to 8 yards under pressure, because we forced our opposition wide, we forced them to cross it into the box, and we've got the extra man there. We've got 2 good centre-halves. The positioning that we talked about from our centre-halves last match means they're never going to get a free header. And even if McTominay, like he is over 6 foot, he's better in the air than Badebo. Badebo is always going to be there hounding. And as long as he's putting pressure on that player, he's very unlikely to direct his header past the goalkeeper. Even if he hits the target, which he hasn't there, it would probably be feeble, it might not be directed where he wanted, and it might not have as much power or accuracy as intended. So that is exactly what we want to restrict our opposition to, particularly in a game of this magnitude. I have absolutely no idea what this one is on the left-hand side. It seems very bizarre that there's an Ian Brooks shot going backwards, so we're going to deem that a glitch. In terms of blocked shots, we've got one that was sort of a pop effort. It's the 93rd minute, as you can see on the counter. It's not like it was in the key areas of the game. That's just running down the clock, tired legs, having a shot from the edge with no support. But let's look at where the rest of things came from. So our goal, 6 yards out. On the counter-attack, absolutely perfect. And we're inside the width of the 6-yard box. That is an excellent chance. If we look at the 2 that were saved, again later on in the game with Ian Brooks, yes, they were a bit further out, sort of the penalty spot and just behind it, but they're inside the box and they're between the width of the goalposts. The more shots you have from that area, the better you're going to do, because generally it will mean you've split the centre-halves or you've beaten a midfield runner. If you're dead in front of goal, you've got 2 corners to aim at the very least. And if we have a look at the other shots as well, just as an example, Joe Duffy just missing from 6 yards out. That was a header under slight pressure. And then 2 chances from the left side of the box. One Yesden Weaver making a run in, and one Joe Duffy who'd got in one-on-one but missed the opportunity. So there really are good chances in the match to try and create goals. And more of them, as you can see, compared to Marseille. 4 great chances there, within 12 yards in the width of the 2 posts. That's exactly what we want when we're creating chances against very good sides. We don't really care if we've got 20 or 30 shots, we just want them to be very good chances. And there, they absolutely were. So now you've got an idea of what we're looking at, let's move it on to key passes. So 3 key passes for Bangor City. Now this is where you're going to see a difference to the Welsh League game that we're going to show later. All of our key passes in this game largely came from wide areas, albeit 2 were still within the width of the box, but they were passes from wider areas going into centre. If we look at Marseille though, by contrast, we would expect them to have more in this game. They're a better side, they're going to have more of the ball and more in attacking areas. But if you look at the opportunities, as I move the shot that hit the woodwork, you're actually not seeing a huge amount of creativity. So there's one that was blocked from the right wing, which was just an attempted key pass into the box. There was one cut back from a wide area, which is fair enough. There was one sort of Hollywood ball from miles out from Andreas Pereira. And that's what we want to force. We want to force them wide. You can see all 3 of those from outside the width of the box. So we've got our structure centrally. We're not going to force them inside. We're not going to force them to try and play backwards. What we want to do is let them get it into central areas from out wide, because that's where all our opposition players are. The other one from outside the box, the centre forward playing a square pass, we can live with that. If the number 9 is there and playing sideways passes, he's not going to score too often. Exactly what we wanted. So great to show what we're trying to do defensively, but of course going forward we'll see a lot more in the Welsh game. So let's go and look more at the defensive side of the game, which is crucial in these games against big European sides. And to do that, we start with interceptions. So let's have a look at Marseille first this time. Because you can see here, in terms of blocks and interception, the blocks perhaps a little misleading because they're largely from crosses. But even if we take them off and look at the interceptions, so when we're playing a narrow diamond, we're looking to play between the lines of the penalty area. And all of their blocks, bar 3, have come from outside of that. So what that means is we're forcing their players wide to make the interception. But don't forget, we've got a narrow diamond. So even if one of our players has gone out there, we've got 3 players in this central square of the pitch who are going to be unmarked or have one less man up against them. And that's exactly what we're trying to create, an overload through the middle of the pitch. So the more our fullbacks can force a player out wide to intercept, you can already see from the different squad numbers, it's not just the left back and right back, is it? There's 6 different players there who have made interceptions outside the width of the box. Exactly what we're trying to create. The block's a little bit more conventional, but we're not going to worry about that for now. But it leaves the centre of the pitch free for us to create chances and for us to produce key passes. So let's go and have a look by comparison where we make our interceptions. We've already said we want to force them wide and to get the crosses into the box. So let's see if that strategy works. And I'm hoping you can see a massive contrast. Again, a lot of block crosses from wide areas. They're always going to be the case. Let's take them out though and compare the interceptions to Marseille. By complete contrast, almost all of them within the width of the penalty box. Only 3 out wide there and 1 up the pitch. But even that's with inside the width. So only 3 that aren't within the width of the box. Even Kai McDonald, the right back, number 3, he had a man marking job on an inverted winger. So we just let him go with him. Because you can see he's followed him everywhere and won it back in different positions. However, what you really want to see here is that by comparison to Marseille, where they had numbers all over the place, different players in different areas, ours is very structured. They're all in the perfect area we'd expect them to be. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to keep a really tight structured shape in the centre of the pitch. Albeit when we get the ball, we're flamboyant, we fly men forward. But our tactical shape defensively, albeit very narrow, is very, very disciplined. And that means that these players are rarely out of position and all of the interceptions are made in the area of the pitch where we can counter. Now we've already seen that Marseille have a lot of players out here. So look at that space we've now got to drive into and create chances. It's something that works more effectively in the league, where we're superior to our opposition, quite frankly. But you can see here the exact tactical blueprint and how narrow we want that diamond to be. It's not disciplined if you then have wide fullbacks, if you then have a complete wingback who can't press, who isn't positionally good. And that shows about the centre halves as well. The positioning is so crucial. And you can see there just how effective it's been. So a perfect blueprint. And without looking before, that's exactly what I wanted it to show. So I'm glad it has done. Finally though, we've got to see what that means overall before moving on to the Welsh game, which will be a lot easier to dissect. We'll start by where we've gained possession. So Bangor City again, if you take out these few on the right hand side, all of the times we've won the ball back have been within the width of our penalty area yet again. The place we gain possession is where a counter-attack or where our dominance of the game starts. And if all of those are in the areas where we've got the most players, we've got the most people in position, we're going to be more threatening and we're less likely to concede. You can see again, in terms of the numbers, they're not too scattered. You've got people exactly where you'd expect to find them. And working up the channels of the pitch, that's absolutely perfect. You don't want to worry too much about whether they're winning a ball, say like number 6 Badebo here and here, because that can be a header from a goal kick and a header from a cross. They're always going to be further up the pitch. What you don't want is your left centre half dragged out here, over there, up here in the middle. You don't want them there. You want them working sort of up their flank within a third of the pitch. So we've got Badebo from his 6-yard box to the start of the centre circle. That's exactly what we want. If you just dissect it into 4 strips essentially. So you've got the wide strip outside the penalty area on both sides. Then dissect the other 2 areas straight down the middle. And really, bar the odd one, you don't want your players drifting out of their zones. By contrast, Marseille's all over the shop. So yes, a few towards the centre of the pitch. We seem to have dragged them wide right quite often. I'm not quite sure what's caused that. We have mentioned Max Dean playing wider than Duffy in the front 2 in a tactical episode, so perhaps that contributes. Yes, they're winning it a bit higher up the pitch. You'd expect them to be more attacking against a side like us. But you can see we can catch them out when we win it. But them, they've got players scattered all over. The number 4, Bruno Amioni, I couldn't even tell you what position he's playing looking at this. He's won it right centre-half position there, in the centre circle, on the left wing, at left back, in his own penalty area 3 times, and on the right side of his box by the goal line. Can you tell what position he's playing from that? That tells you how structured our shape is. So Marseille playing a bit more fluid, a bit more attacking, they expect to beat us. But a good structure can beat anything. Finally then, if we translate that into the heat map and what it means in terms of our average position, have a look at Marseille here. Almost all of their key areas of the pitch are out wide. Yes, they've had one little spot left side of centre here, but mostly the right wing and further back on the left. So we forced them wide. That's all we spoke about in the last episode. We want to force sides wide. And you can see they've not spent much of their time in the centre of the pitch at all. And that's exactly what we want. Us, by contrast, have a look at that. We said, let's work down the centre of the pitch. Let's stay in our structure. And you can almost point out where the positions are. You've got the 2 centre halves. You've got the box-to-box midfielders and the ball winner. You've got the number 10 and only Joe Duffy slightly drifting. It's exactly what we want to create. We're forcing our opposition wide and we're staying very structured in the centre of the pitch. And all it takes is one breakaway, as you've seen. And that's something people often think. To go defensive, you have to go one up front and drop everyone back. But as I'm showing you there, that's a positive tactic. That's got 2 up front with a number 10 in behind. But it wasn't any more aggressive, it wasn't any more attacking. But very quickly by contrast, before we finish, let's look at Llandudno instead and see how we got on against them. A game where we should be dominant by contrast. So of course we won't take as long looking at this game because you already know the principles we're looking for now. We just want to see how much further up the pitch it is in the domestic games against weaker opposition and whether or not there's any massive differences. So Llandudno only had 1 shot, but again we forced it from a fairly wide area fairly far out and it was a tame effort in the end. By contrast, Bangor City of course had loads of them, so let's get them all on here. Have a look at those shots. So yes, there was 1 great goal from outside the box by Ian Brooks. There were 2 long-range shots by number 15, which is Max Dean. But take out those 3 anomalies and have a look at all of the other shots. All within the penalty box. Most of them, bar probably that one from Ian Brooks and that one from Duffy, and that one maybe on the byline, all within the width of the 6-yard box. And we talked about creating good chances. We talked in our tactical special too about having Max Dean running in that right channel as an advanced forward. Now, I quite like the combination of 2 little forwards, an advanced forward and a poacher. You've got Joe Duffy, who tries to stick in the width for the penalty spot here, and then Max Dean, who drifts wide and then arrows himself in. So he's in that sort of right side of the penalty area. He's still getting close to the goal here because he's so much superior to the rest of his team. But it's just a real good evidence of creating good chances rather than creating lots. You see so many times about people talking, being FM'd. I've had 30 shots, but I've only scored 1 goal. I guarantee you, they looked at this screen for 2 minutes, they'd know why. If you've had 30 shots, but they're all dotted around this penalty line like this, or from out wide, of course they're going to be missed more often than not. If you have chances like this that are predominantly 15 yards out or closer, and within the width of the 6-yard box, you're of course going to score more goals. You're going to have better chances, clear-cut chances. Let's move that on to key passes as well, starting with Bangor. And you can see here, albeit it's a little bit more of a mixed bag, we've got a corner, we've got a couple of crosses, and we've got a couple of cutbacks from the edge of the box. The majority of our key passes are from the central areas of the pitch, where we've talked about the Marseille game trying to create space in there. And if we can win the ball high up the pitch in the middle in this game too, which we'll look at in a moment, these key passes will be unopposed, which means they're more likely to be spot on. They're more likely to reach their destination and create a good chance. But you can see 6 or 7 of those 11 in the central areas of the pitch. And more importantly, look where they're feeding into. They're all feeding into within the width of the 6-yard box, and the majority of them in the penalty area too. So these are the key passes, creating the clear-cut chances. It's exactly what we expected to see. Llandudno, they didn't have many, but again, look what we're forcing them to do. Because we packed that central area of the pitch here, we've got 2 centre-halves, we've got a holding midfielder and 2 centre-mids. They've played 2 Hollywood balls from the halfway line because they can't get further forward. They can't find a pass into midfield or into the attacking lines. So instead, they're trying to play through us. They're trying to play over the top. And then as we've mentioned before, Alzabad and Badebo, the main focus is a good positioning attribute for our centre-halves. That means whoever that ball's intended for, they're never going to get a free header. It doesn't matter if they're better in the air. Doesn't matter if they're quicker. They're never going to get a free shot. They're never going to get a free header. The third one, just a hopeful cross into the box. Exactly what we're forcing our opposition to do. So now if we go back to episode 1 and when we were talking about the attributes that are key to our defenders, I hope when you see that and how our opposition are creating chances, it makes sense as to why we've picked them out above others. Onto the defensive side of the game though, of course not as important for us here, but let's have a look at it anyway. So Llandudno, we talked about where we want to force our opposition. Most of our attacks are coming through the middle. You saw that on the general match analysis. 40% of our chances are coming through the middle. Llandudno though, not making many interceptions in the middle. This channel here, where we saw Max Dean running in so many times, none whatsoever. That's exactly what we want. Yes, they've made some on the other side, but they're still very wide. There's none of them right in the centre of the pitch. And again, although they've got their players in a better positional sense, they're leaving us so much space in the areas of the pitch we've got the most players and that we're the most potent. So again, we're forcing our weaker opposition to play into our hands. If we look at ours by contrast, again, take out the blocks, which are the crosses into the box. Almost all of them, although higher up the pitch against weaker opposition, still between the width of the penalty box. We're winning the ball back there on halfway. We're creating our counter-attacks. We're getting our key passes in. We're getting our shots in. So we're winning the ball back here. Llandudno not winning the ball back at all in this defensive third in the middle. So when we're getting the ball back here, generally, it means we're getting to that penalty box. And that means we're probably going to create a chance. So the narrow diamond might look a complicated tactic, but if it's executed well, it can be a lethal weapon. And it can be so simple. And finally then, just for completion, let's have a look at where we regain possession. So you can see ours again, almost all down the middle of the pitch. A lot of them, the centre half's a bit higher up in this game, winning the ball back just inside our half. But all of them across the width of the box. Just a few little wide ones again, but you can see where the majority of the work's coming in. We're forcing them to go wide, play into the central areas, and we're winning it back nice and easy because we've got an overload there. Llandudno, by contrast, absolutely all over the place. So a big section of players out wide here, a big section of ones down the wing here. And yes, they've still won back a few in the middle because we've had so much possession. They're going to have to win it back a few times. But you can see this area of the pitch is a lot more scattered with a lot more free areas than the wide areas where they're winning it back loads. So they might be occupying the fullbacks, but there's 2 or 3 different numbers regularly out there. That means that the central players here, where we've got a diamond, 2 strikers and 2 centre halves, it's an 8-man overload against what's often going to be 3, 4 or 5 players. And I know who's going to win that battle more often. What that means on the heat map, if we look again, bar one little bit in the centre spot, which might just be from taking 7 kickoffs, Llandudno's key areas have again been out wide around the centre of the pitch. And that's exactly where we want them. We want to force our opposition wide and force them to cross it into the box or to play those Hollywood balls. And no matter whether we're playing Marseille, a top opposition, or Llandudno, one of the weaker sides in our league, that pattern's still the same. We're forcing our opposition wide into the areas we want them to attack. Which is why positioning's so key for our central players then, to keep that structure and not get forced out. Bangor City though, look at that. There is a very scalding hot heat map in the centre of the pitch. The whole area between the width of the penalty boxes is roasting hot. We're winning the ball back here, we're pushing through the middle, and the goals are coming from inside the box. It's exactly what we wanted to create. It's taken a long time to get there, but it's working perfectly now. So I encourage you all to use this screen more often. Have a look at why you're not scoring from your 30 chances. Have a look at what's actually happening when you have 60% possession. Have a look at where you're actually winning the ball back and where you're having to defend. And then try and work your players' attributes and your signings to match them. That's my advice on this front. But if you did enjoy it, if you did find it useful, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Let me know in the comments if you use this screen as well, because I feel like I might be the only one. But for me, this screen is a lifesaver and shows whether my tactic's working or not. So let me know if you use it. If you haven't already, please do subscribe down below for daily FM21 content from 2 long-term stories. Let me know if you're still enjoying this series, if you're finding it useful, and hopefully you can catch up with all the other playlists in the eye above, as well as the podcast channel too, which is growing really quickly. But a massive thank you for joining me for another Sunday morning special. I knew this episode wasn't going to be ultimate entertainment and it wasn't going to be for everyone, but I hope a few of you have got something out of it. But thank you very much for watching as always. Your support is absolutely incredible. And I'll see you at 3:30 today for the head coach, where there's plenty more drama to come. I'll see you there.